Al Ewing and Jacopo Kamangi bring S.W.O.R.D crashing down as the station plummets towards Earth, with only Cable and Manifold left to deal with the extinction level event while the rest of the mutants deal with the Lethal Legion. Al Ewing finishes up S.W.O.R.D this issue by doing a little bit of a balancing act, wrapping up several storylines the best he can that really only just begun last issue as well. In that regards, the stuff with WizKid going undercover and the Lethal Legion story just kind of petered out there at the end and are kind of left ambiguous as to what really happened. So you don't get satisfying conclusions for them, but I kind of feel like that might be on purpose and they'll be picked up later on in X-Men Red, but the storylines, if they were meant to finish here, were kind of started a bit too late in the game. The WizKid stuff especially felt like something that should have been peppered throughout the entire series to help showcase how he and Brand were always on top of the Orchis threat and Orchis weren't as big a threat to S.W.O.R.D as they thought they were. All these storylines, however, are made up for, in my opinion, by Abigail Brand's big revelations at the end of the issue, with her totally turning her back on Krakoa, detailing how it's kind of had its time and it needs to be something new, and she ends up joining Orchis and wanting to take control of Krakoa and kind of shepherd mutantdom herself. So well set up, and her grievances with mutants on Krakoa, seeing each other as kind of one-dimensional beings and they're defined only by their powers and everything, was quite interesting, and her striking out on her own had echoes of what Ewing did with her during Empire, so there's a nice bit of symmetry there, kind of coming full circle a little bit, and I'm looking forward to her role going forward in X-Men Red, especially if she's going against Krakoa and what they want. Jacopo Kamangi finishes up the series with more really awesome action-packed anime-styled artwork that really captured the cinematic scale of S.W.O.R.D and their work. I love the sequence with Manifold saving the station in Australia, and it was such a great use of his powers on a grand scale. S.W.O.R.D issue 11 was a pretty satisfying ending to the sci-fi series, and while the final plot felt a little bit rushed, Ewing and Kamangi wholly made up for it with a fantastic final setup with Abigail Brand and the things to come in X-Men Red, as well as some great looking visuals. I'm going to give this issue an 8.5 out of 10. S.W.O.R.D issue 11 heads to Australia, where Manifold meets his Uncle Baz, telling him that he's there on Krakoa business, not wanting to worry anyone, but it's hard not to notice the S.W.O.R.D Station 1 dropping from the sky. Baz hopes he can handle this, and Eden knows he can, reassuring his uncle he's got help on the other side thanks to Cable, who his uncle mistakes for Bucky Barnes. Eden corrects him, saying that Cable is the Pouches guy, but Cable can hear him, knowing that he's not ungrateful for his assist since they are going to need Manifold's powers for this to work. He tells Manifold that the thrusters are dead on his end and his telekinesis won't be able to work on something this big in Earth's gravity, so all he can do is kind of guide it. That's not the only problem, however, as the techno-organic virus Cable has inside of him is being let loose, thanks to his telekinesis being used elsewhere. The virus connects to the station as up on Alpha Flight Station. Guardian isn't happy with the station looking to wipe out Australia, especially when Henry Gyrich said that they would splash it down in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Gyrich knows that wasn't part of the plan, demanding WizKid explain himself, so Takashi says that he was asked to knock the space station out of orbit, and he did that, but he's not God, just merely godlike. He telepathically contacts Brand, telling her that he's very scared, asking if he blew up Australia. Brand knows that Cable can handle it, telling the boy to stop fussing since her people were handpicked for a reason, and that reason is now. Henry knows that they still go ahead with the plan, knowing that they are still showing the world the truth that Krakoa can't function as the sole voice for the solar system. He asks Orbis Stellaris about their situation on Mars, and the alien tells him that even against the unexpected resistance, their mission will succeed within the time frame. Henry reminds the alien that this is just an assassination attempt and they don't want civil war to break out in Shi'ar systems. But Orbis feigns her concern, knowing the man has her word and nothing like that will ever happen. On Araco, the remaining heroes face the army of Lethal Legion members who have arrived via portals, wondering how they are going to ever take on this many when one team almost wiped them all out. Cannonball rallies Gladiator, knowing that he's taken on hundreds of bad guys before, but Gladiator knows that he was powered by self-belief, but his confidence has been shattered thanks to the enemy's psychic weapons. Sam contacts Deathbird, who tells him to buy her some time with their lives since she'll get the Empress back to Shi'ar space. The Empress denies this plan, not wanting to run forever, and she's sick of hiding. She wants to have faith in the X-Men and their goddess, as Storm demands the team back away from the villains, as Frenzy knows that the Empress is right and they cannot run and let the Lethal Legion have this diplomatic zone. The mutant suddenly finds it very hard to breathe as S.W.O.R.D manipulates the air pressure in the area, making it heavier and surrounding the Lethal Legion with it to build pressure. Straining against her powers, S.W.O.R.D unleashes the pressure and the army of the Legion members all explode in a bloody mess. She knows they'll survive it if they get them to stasis right away, and then the S.W.O.R.D can take it from there, and hopefully their creator will have learned their lesson. The watching Orchis has, since that's what product tests are for after all. Orchis cuts communication with Henry, but he doesn't care since Arakko was just a side mission, knowing that Krakoa will be discredited once S.W.O.R.D Station 2 falls into Earth. Guardian knows that Henry can't honestly think that crashing a space station into a populated area would get his backing. Henry knows that it's an acceptable amount of losses for their future of the planet and the Sol system, and for that, any sacrifice is necessary. Cable meanwhile is almost overcome by the virus, but tells Manifold that he is okay. Manifold watches as the station descends towards him, activating his powers and portaling the entire station back up towards space. Thanks to the exertion of power, he collapses in exhaustion, knowing that he nearly didn't have that one, wanting to lie down for a minute. Cable tells him he's got it from now, knowing that it's easier to push with momentum than pull against it, so he can push the station back into orbit now, but not without its cost. Manifold asks if he's okay, but Cable is, thanks to being able to use his telekinesis to control the virus again and slow it back down. Guardian meanwhile tells Henry that this is all over now and the S.W.O.R.D delegates are dead and they are lucky they are the only ones, wanting to inform Department H about all of this, and he'll be relieved of his command thanks to this. Henry doesn't think so, since now he's justified in his actions in the face of Krakoa expansionism, and now Orchis understands how dangerous the mutant nation is. WizKid agrees with that, and they are very dangerous to the people who try and murder their guests. Henry realizes that WizKid double-crossed him as the mutant reveals that his hover chair conceals everything he needed to hack Henry's systems, and it's too bad he was scanning for Krakoan tech, not WizKid's own made tech, since he's just downloaded every little secret Henry had from Orchis. Knowing Henry was right and Department H wouldn't do much with it, but he thinks maybe the S.W.O.R.D might like the info though. Henry frantically tries to call Dr. Devo, wanting extraction, but he is suddenly sealed in a corridor as he tries to escape. He continues to plead with Orchis to save him from the technopath who has trapped him on his own station as his phone dies. Abigail Brand confronts him, telling him for the record this was her station before it was his. Brand says that she told WizKid to concentrate on backing up the data he was running, and that will trigger a deletion protocol which will make sure that WizKid is kept busy, allowing them some privacy to talk. Henry doesn't want to talk, telling Brand that Mars was stolen from humanity and they are trying to conquer the solar system, and it puts them all in danger since Krakoa isn't built for the state they have been put in. Brand actually agrees with him and they aren't ready, and she doesn't have a problem with him or Orchis taking out Krakoa since that needs to happen and soon, but she does have a problem with him being very bad at it. She talks about him and his plans, knowing that trying to get WizKid on his side was wrong since while he was an Avenger for all of 2 minutes, he was a mutant for his whole life, and she has been a spacer for hers, and while she has mutant DNA, she was born and raised on Axis, and of course no one on Krakoa actually asked her that, or even know what her real name is, since Brand is only a code name thanks to the powers that allow her to brand stuff with her hands, which according to mutant culture is the only thing that defines her. She knows that mutants are just another flavor of Eartha, and she needed Krakoa for a little while to make the Sol system a serious player, but now the stage is a little too big for Eric and Charles and their drama of a beast becoming the necessary monster. She thinks that maybe S.W.O.R.D has some steel for this, but then she started respecting Arakko's customs instead of imposing her own will on them. So no, Sol is not better with them, and Brand thinks that getting rid of all of them and running it herself is the best idea. She tells Henry that it's time for him to leave as she opens one of the airlocks. He pleads with her to let him go and remember the mutant laws, and Brand knows all about the kill no man law, but she doesn't play by rules she doesn't respect. She says she made it look like he pushed the button on the station he was in control of and killed himself, and that's her doing one last kindness to him. She tells him not to worry about his place in Orchis, since it's in the best possible hands. Henry is blasted out into space and killed by the vacuum as WizKid contacts Brand, getting readings of an airlock being opened by Henry and wanting to know if Gyrich has left the station. He wants to know what just happened, so Brand tells him it's not about what's happened, it never was, and it's about what comes next.